Hey, 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 welcome in, beautiful beings. And in today's episode, we are joined by Leeowen Barnes. Welcome, Lee.
Hello, how's things? Everything good?
Good, thank you very much. So you have been a carer for the past 12 years and a healer for 10 years. Is that right?
That's
And
correct.
so we're going to talk about the different spiritual experiences that you've had yourself. And the way we sort of connected, I love these connections, is you appeared on a show with Mark Atwood. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, and I'd been on a show as well of his previously. So you work with people's energies to help them release and get rid of past trauma and help people get to the root cause of their problems.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so do you want to tell me sort of like where your healing journey started, where your spiritual journey started?
Yeah, no worries. It probably started approximately, I'd go as far as say 15 years ago. I'd sort of, I kind of woke up more so when I think it was it's the September 2001, the Twin Towers. That was the big, when those things went down. I looked into, all kind of was supposed conspiracy stuff. And a lot of it, kind of made sense to me that something wasn't right. So that was the main sort of key of me waking up more so. I knew that I'd had like really kind of crazy and wonderful spiritual experiences throughout my whole life. I'd had, sort of experiences with spirit and stuff like that. And had, all kinds of weird and wonderful things, right from a child all the way right through up. I'd seen extraterrestrial crafts and stuff when I was a child and things like that. So I kind of knew that the world that we're living in, we're not being told the full truth, so to speak. So yeah, that sort of started there really. But as more later on in the last sort of 10 years, when I was talking about sort of spiritual stuff and those kind of things, I mean, I can be a bit woolly, when you talk about spiritual stuff. But I think our own journey, we've all got our own journeys that we've been on. And I found really interesting was that when I had like sort of inner sort of emotional problems and stuff as a child and going through them and stuff and trying to work through it. But what I found was that it was really interesting when I'd had like a spiritual attachment, which was an entity basically that had filled in a void where I came from a lack of, and it started speaking to me. It was sort of saying, he even gave me his name was, I'd say he's a regular spirit. It was called John. And I said, how long have you been with me? He said, I've been with you since you were 10 years old. And at this point, I was 30. So, and I was like, well, hang on a minute. You've been sort of taking a bit of a ride on me for the last 20 years. I think it's time to, sort of go on. And he was like, no, Leeowen, I enjoy your light. You're really nice and this, that, and the other. I'm saying, yeah, I appreciate that. But you're kind of using my energy and I don't like that. So I'm not having that anymore. So, and then suddenly I just sort of, I said to, the Christ energy, I said, Christ energy, please, can you take this thing away from me? And I said a couple of times, and then before you know it, within my mind's eye, I see a big vortex of like a big circle of light, and then I just see something come and grab it off me and take it away. So I thought, oh, hang on a minute. And then suddenly it was really strange because my energy had been very codependent on that energy. So I always felt like I didn't know myself anymore. So I had to almost like re-establish and remember who I was, because my energies had been sort of relying on that energy for some time, and I wasn't even aware of it. So that really sort of started to think, well, hang on a minute. And then I got into past life regression as well. I had a few sessions of that, and I've been living multiple lives at the same time in one kind of time period, which was around the Second World War. And I was split between like 3 different people. I was like a little girl, and I was a man in between Switzerland and Austria, I think. And I was also a gentleman that was actually in the war, and I'd actually had memories of how I died. And that was really interesting. I got trapped in a tripwire and a tank ran over me. And according to my higher self, it was a very enlightening experience. I don't know how enlightening that could be for someone to get run over by a tank. But at that time, it obviously showed me sort of inner workings of probably that life and what was going on. So I'd actually found out, hang on a minute, there's a lot more going on here than we've been told. And I think it was a time where, you know, I obviously we all go through our own trials and tribulations of inner workings. And I found that once I was going through all these things, I was finding all these things out. And then suddenly, you know, I was really drawn to the whole psychedelics. And that's when I really, you know, things really did start to, I think I'd opened up Pandora's box when I'd gone the psychedelic route. Yeah. And to be honest, that's probably something that I sort of spoke to about some close friends about. And that's something that we're probably going to do again very soon, because I really feel that psychedelics, magic mushrooms, you know, anything like that, they're food for the soul, but also food for the brain and the mind and your consciousness. And this is something that I think that people kind of underrate. They think, oh, magic mushrooms, oh, you know, I'll see a bunch of things and this, that, and the other. But your whole soul and your, you know, your spirit will go through massive transformations just in you know, one experience. And oh my gosh, you know, I mean, there was a time where when I'd done it, I was just, it was just a Sunday night. It was something, I'll take it from the very beginning, right? So I used to work security. I used to work as a bouncer, doorman, whatever you want to call it. And I was in the neck of the woods where if there's anything that I wanted to get my hands on, I knew enough people so I could. So I had a chat with one of my colleagues and I said, oh, you know, thinking about doing some magic mushrooms, been reading up months and months and months about it. And I think I'm ready to have an experience. And he said, right, you know, here's this guy, have a chat with him. Ironically, the guy's name was Frank, which was quite ironic. But no, and he, you know, he gave me, you know, a bag of dried and ready to go. I think they were kind of, I think they were Tropicana, tropical, something like that, dried, ready to go. And he said, look, you'd probably give me a bag of them. And he said, you probably want to do about a third of the bag. He said, you know, don't want to do too much more than that. And mate, you're talking to a guy that doesn't drink alcohol, doesn't smoke, you know, a gym fanatic, love the gym and like to be healthy. Well, you know, little did I know, I mean, I've got tattoos and stuff on my arms and things like that. And there was one Sunday night and I popped these shrooms in, just washing down with some water, minding my own business, laptop on me at night, just relaxing, headphones in, listening to music. And suddenly I started to, I felt a bit, you know, I felt a bit strange, a bit well, not a bit off, but I just felt like I'm not myself. And then suddenly I was looking down and my tattoos were moving around my arms and I was thinking, oh, this is pretty interesting. And then suddenly, like in the room that I was in, it became like sheets of what I would call like sheets of rainbow. That's all I could describe it as. And it was like, it was, again, like a matrix is probably the only best way I could see myself in this matrix in this room. And I was thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. You know, I'm okay with this, you know. And then suddenly it intensified and intensified. And it got to the point where I was on the edge of my bed and I turned the light on and I was sitting there rubbing my legs thinking, cool, oh, this is strong, you know, this is really strong. And I didn't know where I was going to go with it. And then suddenly it then hit me and then I had to let go because I was really finding, I was trying to hold on. And then when I'd actually let go, I then found myself in a really kind of dark place within my mind. And I remember saying to myself, gosh, you know, I'm dead. This is how it feels just dead. Oh, this is not very good. You know, this is not fun at all. And then suddenly I had, I want to say, my higher self or my spiritual guide then spoke up and said, Leeowen, you're absolutely fine. You're just on a trip at the moment. And I thought, okay, but this feels very surreal. And what basically that voice had told me is that it kind of brought forward my biggest fear. And that biggest fear was to die in the dark. So, and I didn't know that consciously. So, and then suddenly when I went into that experience, and then I sort of come out of that, and I sort of started to gain more control of my experience. And then I found that the whole conception of time completely disappeared. And then I went downstairs. I remember going into the bathroom and looking at the mirror, looking at myself. And the interesting thing is, I managed to witness not only my consciousness, my ego, and my higher self, they were both talking to each other, and I was the third person in the room witnessing it. And at the time, my higher self was going, Leeowen, you don't love yourself. You don't love yourself internally. My ego was going, yes, I do. Look at me. I'm this, that, and that. Blah, blah, blah. And I could see them both bickering. And I was sitting there just scratching my head going, wow, this is amazing. You know, I'm actually seeing two elements of myself talking to each other. And I was witnessing it. So that really was really kind of cool at the time. And then I noticed that also what I kept saying to myself when I came to and I started to get like the control of the experience was that this was all nothing but a matrix that I was in. And I kept saying, no, this is real. My actual life is not real. Where I am now, this is what's showing the truth and the realness of my matrix, of my experience. So that was really strong. And then suddenly I had I think it was Saint Germain. Saint Germain coming quite close and was talking to me about the purple ray and this, that, and the other. And it was really interesting. He was an ascended master, and that was really interesting because I kind of read up a little bit, but he came in and really showed me things, and he actually took my consciousness through the universe. And while this was all going on, and I was just like, I was absolutely dumbfounded. And then he was talking about the Godhead of consciousness. And I was just like, wow, you know, this was just so surreal. But it really opened up my consciousness to such a beautiful degree, which then that's when the magic really started to happen. Like all my abilities really came to the surface. Like I could listen, I could hear spirit and my guides. I could talk to them like I'm talking to you now. Yeah. And there would be nights where I'd be doing security and stuff, and I would be happy working on my own or on the door somewhere, because all in my head all night, all I was doing was talking and asking questions about everything, about all life, you know, all those things like deja vu and I was just taught how to go up and seek source, the creator of all that is, and all sorts. And it was just, I was guided in so many ways, and all these lovely gifts and abilities were you know, sort of I was remembering them. And suddenly I then started to remember all my past lives as well. I'd lived at the time when Christ walked upon the earth. And in fact, actually, my wife as well, because I can do in my healing sessions, I can do regression as well. I can take you back to sort of, you know, past lives. I can even take you into future lives if that's something that someone are interested in. So it was really interesting. But also amongst all of that, that really started to open up a can of worms, because I started to see like I say, interdimensional beings. They were just appearing in my front room and talking to me, and I was just sitting there scratching my head thinking, wow, this is pretty mind-blowing, you know. And I know what kind of, there was like a cat race, and there was also the blue avians, as they're called, the blue avians. They were speaking to me, and there was like 4 or 5 of them, and they're all talking amongst themselves, and they'll go, oh, look at Leeowen, bless his heart, he's now starting to see things. And they were like really bantering, had a bit of banter and a really good personality. So it was really fun, yeah. You know. And I remember, I mean, even simple things as I remember going onto a bus at the time, because I think my car broken down, and I would be having all these energy and spirits come and talk to me, going, no, can you talk to Sandra over there? Give her a message. And I'm like, I can't do that. You can't do that because she'll think I'm crazy. And these, you know, and there were people that I'd worked with who died of cancer and things like that. And, you know, this gentleman come to me who I used to work with, and I worked with him for years. And he was like, oh, can you give a message to my wife? I really need this message to my wife. And I said, look, I'll try. But every time I went and see her, she was never in, you know. So she wasn't supposed to get that message. And that's fair enough. And that's just the God's way, you know, that's fair enough. But with all of this, there was so much happening. And I mean, as I say, especially with regards to seeing inside the dimensions. I mean, things have kind of calmed down a bit now, and I'm kind of got a bit of a handle on it. And at one point, you know, I opened up, like, as you say, Pandora's box, and I was having all these wonderful, weird experiences. My spirit guide would just walk in the room and start chatting to me, and I'm sitting there going, oh gosh, you know, what's going on here? And then I'd wake up and there'd be a gentleman at the bottom of my bed. He'd just be watching me, and it was so surreal. But I really significance to the psychedelic side of things. If you, I mean, I was quite a peaceful kind of place when I did these, which was really good, and that's really important. If you're going to have an experience like that, then you really need to do your research. I think it's not always for the faint-hearted, because it will show you elements of yourself that you probably were not aware of, and also open up doors within inside yourself that are so amazing, you know. And it really showed me the truth within inside of me, and what it meant to be this being that I am. And it really did sort of grow and got better and better and better and better. So I mean, honestly, I've got hundreds and hundreds of stories and those kind of things, but that's really the main fundamentals of that experience.
I was going to say, in terms of, because that's quite a lot, isn't it? Like, obviously, like what you've gone through. But so first of all, let's talk about the experience. So did you feel that you had like the tools that you needed to equip yourself with, like for afterwards? Do you know what I mean? So you said you'd already done a lot of reading around mushrooms before you decided to have your experience. But do you feel you had the tools as well afterwards? You know, obviously, if you were seeing these different multidimensional beings and seeing these spirits, you know, did you feel like in a good place being able to see them, or were you a bit sort of like, oh my God, I need some help? Or
it was really strange because I had probably one kind of friend, bless his soul, he's not here anymore with us. And I used to share a lot of my experiences with him because he was like, me and him were you know, really kind of close, and I could tell him anything and he would kind of just accept what I say as the truth, you know, and those kind of things. That was kind of nice to have something to bounce off. But I was like a child in a toy store. You know, I wanted more, and then the more I kept asking for more, the more these experiences kept coming through, and it was amazing. I mean, nowadays I do have my intuitive work with the clients I work with and stuff. I do see a lot of energy and spirit and stuff like that still, and I'm also being able to work through other people's consciousnesses to link to another person to probably help heal maybe another family member. So it's kind of really amazing. The only limitations we have is our mind. Everything is already there, but you know, the limitations are you know, is our mind. But basically, in a nutshell, the fundamentals of it, I wanted more. I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to experience, and I wanted to remember. And I really had, you know, learned so much just in that single experience. Really opened up doors. It really did.
Did you go down the psychedelic rabbit hole then, like I did afterwards, where I was like, oh my God, I just need to read so much and integrate as well?
The spirit molecule, those kind of things, you know, that was all, you know, that was just like, I needed more, I needed to give. And even now, it still fascinates me. And I'm even thinking about, as you say, hooking up with some like-minded souls to again go for another journey. And that's something that I will be doing in the near future with, as you say, in the current circumstances that we've been all going through. I mean, it's very interesting because the kind of time that we're going through at the moment, the cabal, so to speak, or the deep state, whatever you want to call it, they kind of knew that we're all ascending at this time, and we are moving into such a beautiful time, and we really are. And it might not look outside, but with all the clients that I've worked with, I've taken them into the future, I've taken them into the consciousness, I've taken them to meet the likes of Donald Trump's consciousness and things like that, all those kind of wonderful things that we all look for, you know, of faith, that we are going into something of greatness. And I've got nothing but positive love the whole time. So it's been a really kind of, I've kind of ignored what's going on out there and just focused on what's going on in here and what's going on. And that's the real key factor, is this is the time to work on yourself. This is the time to release the old and just taking responsibility. This is one of the big things, and that's been a lesson for me massively. Take responsibility for your decisions and your actions, and don't, you know, just take anyone's word for it. Just go out there. There's so much information now. You know, so much that there's no reason why you can't find what you're looking for, because it's all there. So, you know, it's amazing. It's amazing. Definitely a wonderful time to be alive in. Definitely.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right. I think in terms of, you know, most people like being at home over the last year, and I kept saying, you know, I was like, right, when you finish decorating your house, when you finished your garden, when you finish the decluttering, you know, at some point you are going to have to work on yourself, you know, and all the stuff that's distracting you, you know, will end up just fading, because you're like, oh my God, I know now that I need to do this work on myself in order to move forward. So
absolutely.
Just going back as well, in terms of like, so they're having this entity attached, because I know there'll be people watching this who are interested in that as well. So how did you know that there was something attached to you? Like, at what point were you like, oh my God, there is something that doesn't feel right?
It was interesting because once it was because of the psychedelic experience, it opened up those doors. I call them doors within inside of myself, that were able to, or allow me to see the inner workings of myself. So in other words, I could literally, and not only that, because of my higher self was, it came online, and my spiritual guide, which was Elias, as I used to name him, and he used to say to me, Leeowen, there's something with you, there's something going on, there's something not quite out of balance, not right. And I was like, okay. And then I would then speak out and say, right, whoever you are, who are you, reveal yourself. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly I got another voice talk to me, say, yeah, hiya. And I'm like, okay, well, where have you come from? And he was, this energy of spirit told me that apparently when I was 10 years old, it was drawn to me because of my light, because of my energy, because you were going through a kind of hardship. And I knew that your energy was strong and powerful, and I was drawn to you. So it's the thing is about that is that what I found is that with all of us now, because we are interdimensional, we are literally alive across the whole spectrum, all the way from the minerals all the way up to the God source. And the thing is about that, we live in this weird universe where a law attracts alike. So if you have, let's just say, a traumatic experience, as I did several of them when I was a child, they kind of created these holes inside of me because I was trying to escape the trauma. So these developed like vortex holes, and which they then become like magnets of the trauma. So then suddenly I was then drawing in these kind of energy manifestation thought forms, were coming into my energy and then influencing my energy. And I was just like, wow, this is crazy. How do I? And then I realized, I think, well, if I resolve that emotion, if I release that, then I won't no longer have that. So that way I will no longer draw anything into my energy field. And that's what I found, and whereas now, I rarely get any problems. If I feel off, I'll normally check in with my higher self and I get just upgrades or energy changes. But sometimes I can tell my heart energy gets affected if there's spirit that's close. And if they're too close, my energy will sort of give me a bit of a, let's say, a force field or a wall to say, Leeowen, guard up, there's something around that obviously likes your energy. So but the thing is, everything is about a vibrational match. So you really, once you start working on yourself and clearing yourself, and people say, well, how do I clear myself? Again, own that problem, own that thing that you had in your gonics. Once you own it, it does not own you. So you can change it. That's one of the things, and people say, oh, well, yeah, but I was hurt and that hurt me and this, that, and the other. Oh, but I don't know how to get rid of it. And you're thinking, right, the scenario is you drink poison and you're expecting someone else to die. It doesn't work like that. So you carry the burden because of your experience. So that's time to release that. And once you kind of get the idea of that, then it becomes an investment in yourself, looking deep in yourself. People say, oh, well, I'm not very good at meditation. I'll give you a good meditation. Going out for a walk in nature, meditation, at its best, at its finest, at its easiest. Those kind of simple implements. You don't have to be some guru. At night times, I put some relaxing music on, some chilled things on, and I'll go to sleep to that, the 432 hertz and things like that. So you kind of, you're basking in a different vibration, even when you're going to sleep. And that's something else, another subject of when you go to sleep and then you have out-of-body experiences and then you have astral plane. And then, you can go off on a whole different tangent with that as well. I mean, that in itself is just another world of I've been to other planets and spoken to other energetic beings, and they're saying, oh, Leeowen, when you come here, you're not normally conscious, you're unconscious. And I was like, oh, am I? I didn't even realize I was coming here, and they were like, yeah, you've been coming here for ages and you've been giving us information. And it was like, I've been through like a wormhole. I say a wormhole, it was a black hole, and it actually came out into another universe, and it actually came to another, I would like to say, Earth-like planet, or an Earth planet from when it was like at the very beginning. And that was amazing, sweeping in there and flying around. There was nothing alive but just greenery. That was amazing, and I've had many of those experiences, probably just like a lot of and this was actually without the psychedelics. This was just normal, and then you've got the past life regression stuff as well. I've fought in wars, and I've been the most horriblest person. I've killed people, done nasty things in some of the lifetimes, and then in other lifetimes where now this lifetime, I know what I've got to do. I know my mission, and my mission is to help folks, to realign folks to their highest purpose and their power, and to give back their power, but just to help them remember that they've already been powerful the whole time.
Yeah.
So again, I can go, I could just talk and talk. It's just it's forever.
There's a lot, isn't there? And it's like,
Oh,
there was a webinar that I watched quite early on when I was just getting into sort of like the plant medicine scene and mushrooms and everything. And it was a chap who did a webinar about DMT and how when you took DMT, when you smoked it, that, you know, it would open your pineal gland and you'd be able to see all these different creatures. And it's like he was sharing this presentation and I was looking at it and I was like, well, I've seen one of those and I've seen one of those and I've never done DMT. So I was like, you know, is it possible to open the pineal gland without smoking DMT? And my, like, I never drink tap water, you know, I don't have fluoride in my toothpaste, you know, I meditate, I try and meditate every day. So I've done a lot around sort of like raising my vibration and not putting chemicals in my body. So being able to sort of like experience those beings before you go into the psychedelics as well, I think is quite useful, because you've already seen them or you've already had some sort of communication with them. So it's not so much of a shock when during your experience, you're then maybe seeing these different beings and you're like, oh my God, they are real. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right there, Liz. I mean, with regards to like these entity beings and stuff like that, I mean, I know within my own spiritual team, I have two main guides that are here. I have a third guide that she only comes, I've had her from birth. She only comes in for emotional support and love matters. And I've had her from birth, and she's a lovely lady, and she'll only come in if I'm experiencing kind of problems in the emotional love kind of cause. Otherwise, she's normally back. And I think she does support other people and does other things, but she's she's assigned to me as well. But the other two spiritual guides, one will be the healing guide, and the other one will kind of be a bit of a wisdom guide, is probably the best way to sort of describe that as. But also, there was a lady that I helped. She had quite a demonic force with her. I'd say demonic because it was very powerful and strong. And I tuned into her and I was like, whoa, this thing is really powerful because it's pressing on me. And I got worried. I'm not going to lie. I got worried. So I think if this thing gets hold of me, this could cause me a lot of, you know, internal turmoil. So I then started to get a bit weary. And then suddenly my higher self just stepped forward and said, Leeowen, you're more powerful than any of this. You haven't got to worry. And then I went, oh, thank you. Because I was starting to worry. But my ego was starting to go, oh my gosh, you know, typical ego wants to protect you kind of thing. And then the higher self stepped forward and said, no, Leeowen, it's fine. And my two guides, they were like, Leeowen, this force that you were trying to deal with, we can't sort it out, but we know somebody who can. Wait 2 minutes. Then suddenly 2 minutes later, I have this being pull up next to me and looks at me, and it's up here. And I look up and I said, hello, you okay? He said, yeah, you. He goes, you've got a problem. I said, yeah, this lady has got this thing with her that's very strong. And I said, well, how's it my spirit guides couldn't deal with that, but you can? And he looked at me and said, I used to be like that once. And he just said, I used to be like that once. And I said, and he goes, I work for the light now. And I looked at him and thought, it was 12 feet tall, it was massive. And I just thought, wow, this is interesting. And then he said, right, what's the problem? I said, can you get rid of that thing with that lady? He said, yep, no worries. And he just went over there and I just see him go, ching, ching. And he like cut this thing in half, took it to the light, and he came back. He said, is there anything else? I said, no, that's wonderful. I said, can I call upon you any time? He said, yes, I can. So I've called upon him 3 or 4 times now. And when he comes close to me, I feel his energy. And even me talking about him now, I can feel his energy is close. So it's really, really nice. And we've all got these spiritual teams, you know, we all have, and call upon them, you know, and that's not being, you know, as I say, everyone's got them. So I'm no special to anyone else, but it's just about having the faith. But one thing I will always say, that psychedelic experience I felt was the making of me.
Really?
Making. Yeah, absolutely.
You know what, it's really interesting to say that. I was just, because what I've found is that the more that I'm talking about my experience with people, the more that people are opening up and saying like, oh, well, I had this experience, so I've done this. And I was just chatting with a lady yesterday, and it wasn't anything to do with psychedelics, but we just happened upon the subject. And she said to me, she said she had an experience about 10 years ago. She went, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, Lindsay, because it opened my mind to the fact that there is so much more to life than what we've been told.
I you know, it's like it's even now, like I'm so, the things that I do with the guys I work with and stuff, like my guides and not the clients and stuff as well. What's really interesting about it is that, like, I mean, my poor wife has been my guinea pig for a solid year. I was regressing her every single night, taking her consciousness to the depths of the universe. I was talking to what they call themselves like field mice, and what they basically are, their job is to basically keep an eye on the fabric of space because of time travel. So there's people that come in and out, and they're ripping up too many holes in the time travel within the kind of the matrix of the universe. And their job is to make sure to keep an eye on those kind of things. And I'd spoken to them through my wife. I was channeling them through my wife, so I was kind of the third party listening to all these things going on. And it was amazing because I was speaking to there are other entities on this planet, on other lands that man have not been on. So that's another thing. When people talk about the flat earth thing, the interesting thing is there are lands beyond lands that are not shown to us. And I was told this by these two, they're not, I want to say they are reptilian in nature, but they were like two old dinosaurs. That's the only way I could describe them. But they were their consciousness and their being, they're millions of years old. And there was a male and a female, and they were so intrigued that we'd connected to them. They were like, wow, they were like just as having much fun that we connected to them as well. They, connecting to us. So that was really amazing. I was talking about just, just about everything and anything that I could get my hands on. So with these kind of things, I mean, I was taking my wife back in time, and she'd been on a planet where she was a being that lived in water. And she loved being in the water. It was really amazing. And I'd had experiences where I'd been a tree, I'd been a flower, I'd been a butterfly. I just, I always say this: if it wasn't for the psychedelic experience opening those doors, what it does is it kills your identity of what you identify yourself with, and it allows you to be your purest form. And that's what's so beautiful, and that's why the experiences just flood in, because you haven't got your ego, you haven't got that in the way of everything all the time, and with this physical body that we've got, or this meat suit, or whatever you want to call it, we're so culturally bound to this body that we think that that's a be or an end of it, and really it's not. Even as much as I like going to the gym and looking after myself and stuff, the truth of the matter is the only person who cares about that is yourself. No one else cares about what you do, not really, because as long as you're not harming anybody. But the key factor is, as you say, with regards to the spiritual stuff. I mean, even as a child, I had a beautiful dream about Jesus Christ and him being on the cross, and him, being up there. And I remember waking. I was only about 8 years old at the time, and I was crying, and I woke up and I was on the side of my bunk bed. And he was next to me and put his arm around me and said, "Leeowen, there's nothing to worry about. Everything's going to be okay." And that was Jesus Christ. What? That blew my mind away. And I was just thinking, I was having all these wonderful experiences. I mean, I'd seen extraterrestrial crafts in the sky when I was like a child as well. And then when I was a teenager, me and my sister simultaneously see something that we both looked at each other and went, hang on a minute, did we just see that? Yeah. So, and there was so many wonderful things sort of going on. And then I remember the early years of social media, which was MySpace, I think at the time, was one of the first platforms I was on. And that really was lovely, because I started to think, hang on a minute, I'm a starseed. What, I've been incarnated on Earth? And I thought, I knew there was something going on that I wasn't being told. And it was that light bulb moment, And there was a gentleman who, I don't really talk to him, but his profile really, opened my senses and gave me that light bulb moment when he was talking about incarnating on Earth, starseeds, other planets, different beings, and I was then hooked. That was then, I wanted to know everything. Yeah. But little did I know, at the moment I started to deep into the rabbit hole, I got really upset. And I remember being in my early 20s at the time, and I got really upset myself. And it's because I found out that everything I've been taught is a lie. Everything I've been taught, everything in the history books, in my life, everything that I think was real was not. And I thought, oh my God, my whole life is just nothing but, it's fabricated. And I haven't even been the one fabricating it.
Yeah.
It was just like, wow, you know, and that was a big shock. But that was a big wake-up call for me to think, well, hang on a minute, you know, I mean, even with what we've been going through in the last sort of 18 months with what's been on the TV and stuff, I looked up and I remember looking at that going, right, what are they distracting us from? What's going on? And then suddenly, you know, there was this avalanche of information coming out, and I was just like, okay, something's going on here, something's not, you know. And then I thought, hang on a minute, aren't we meant to be going through the ascension process? Oh, it's a bit coincidental that they're all trying to be held back and hold us back while we're going through the most, you know, the most powerful time in absolute history. You know, not once has an Earth or a planet and a species moving together. That's something that's never happened. Normally one or the other normally happens. So that was something else. Again, I got into the ascension stuff and I was looking at that. And then again, that took me down, oh gosh, and then it took me into Thoth and things like that, and the emerald tablets, and my God, that was another, you know, another journey. And then I was thinking, oh, then I started to remember I had lives in ancient Egypt, and I was a slave and things like that. And I was just like, it just goes more and more and more and more. And I was thinking, gosh, I've lived here many a times. I've been on other planets. I've been in the other dimensions. I've just seen, experienced things. I've incarnated again with certain soul groups, and it was just mind-boggling. You know, it's just forever going.
I was going to say, it can blow your mind as well a bit at the minute, can't it? Because this, like you said, it's like you're grieving, like sort of like this old life, if you like, you know, this life that we've been taught that this is what the world looks like, this is what society looks like. And then you go into yourself and you're like, well, who am I? You know, and you start rediscovering yourself. And then, like you said, then there's the ascension stuff to deal with. And so there can be a lot of information where you're like, you know, and I can imagine a lot of people at the minute are actually like quite confused because they're like, what the frig's going on? Do you know what I mean? So they're being told this by the mainstream media, but then they might be going on social media. And like you said, they're like, oh, I think I'm a starseed. So what does that mean? And then exploring all of that, as well as trying to really understand what is going on in like the 3D world, as well as within yourself. So if someone is coming, like, if someone's just finding out they're a starseed, for example, or like just coming upon the truths of what's happening, what sort of advice would you give them?
If you're now sort of starting to begin, I mean, a lot of people that I've spoken to actually have recently only becoming more aware, or they've come online in the last sort of year. And I'm like, oh, bless their hearts, you know, you're now coming online, you know, you're the honeymoon period of your awareness, you know, everything's like kind of exciting, you want more. I think the best thing is, I would definitely look into, is to probably, one of the main key factors, people that I sort of looked to was Dolores Cannon, a lot of her stuff. And she, I mean, you have to go to the very beginning of sort of understanding of what she did and how she regressed her, you know, through hypnosis and stuff like that. And she got a lot of information, but it was a lot of important information about, you know, a particular being or your being. And it was like, you know, where your ill health comes from and stuff like that. And just understanding yourself internally, and that not only that you're not just physical, you're not just a bag of bones and flesh and whatever. You have bodies inside of bodies, but these are energy bodies, and those things, they kind of, as I say, they all exist across different dimensions. So I would probably, anybody looking into, you know, trying to understand a bit more, understand is a bit of a funny statement, but more understand is to look at the idea of the dimensional planes of existence. That's something that I would probably Google or go into and look at YouTube. And then once you start to understand that there are many kind of different levels and octaves, it's not just you jump from 3 to 4 to 4 to 5. There's definitely loads of different levels all the way through. And another thing that gets misconstrued a lot with, I get everyone say, yeah, I'm in the 5D now, I'm in the 5D now. And I said, if you're in the 5D now, you'd actually be able to manifest yourself anywhere on the planet with a moment's thought. That's 5D consciousness. You're having a 5D ideal, but or an idea, or have an idea and awareness of what 5D is. But no, there's not. I'm not saying there's no one, because there are people that I've known that to be able to instantly be able to read your mind in telepathy, being able to telekinesis and move things with their mind, be able to teleport their body, their physical body, so to speak, into another place. Now, I was told 10 years ago, again, shortly after the psychedelic experience, I remember going for a drive into town, and I remember thinking, oh, I'm gonna have myself a nice burger, you know, just go, you know, have a bit of a social dig, sort of dig. And I got the voice talk to me again, right, Leeowen? And I was like, yeah. And I went, going to get yourself a burger, are you? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, don't worry, because where you're going in the future, you won't need to eat. And I thought, hang on a minute, what do you mean I won't need to eat? And I was like, what do you mean I'll die? And no. Where you're going, you won't need to eat. And I thought that was quite an interesting statement to be told. And I said, okay, well, what does that mean then? And basically, the voice, which say my spiritual guide, laughed and said, Leeowen, you're going to be able to take this physical body up to the higher planes. And I said, well, I can't do that. He said, your body will eventually become what they would call quasi-physical. In other words, it'll be half physical, half not. And I won't need to use food as a source of energy. And that was told to me 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So that really opened up my more thing about ascension and all this, that, and the other. Now, I think once over those coming weeks, months, years, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to start seeing into dimensions naturally, you know. And I mean, the psychedelic experience, I mean, I would say it does speed things up. There's no two ways about it. You know, you really will open up doors. But from what I've been told from the, you know, from spirit, from source and stuff like that, we are all moving through a real, you know, a powerful process. And not to say that there are many years ago that the Mayans, they managed to shift up their consciousness and disappear from the standard 3D reality and move up to the higher realms. And they've done that physically. You've got a whole race that just disappeared. And the reason they disappeared is because they managed, as a group, consciousness were able to ascend. So it's something that has been done in history, but a planet and a species at the same time supposedly hasn't been done. So that's something that we are probably going to be experiencing. And probably we're on the doorstep of it. There's no two ways about it.
No, I did some writing, or I was doing some channeling. I can't remember if it was John Lennon who'd said it, but basically we were meant to ascend in the 60s, and they were saying, you know, like, we're so close, but unfortunately, because like the government came in and they said the energies were still too dark and it wasn't the right time to do it. So that was the plan initially, that in the 60s we were meant to ascend, but the dark energies were still too much in control. So then it's obviously taken the best part of like 50, 60 years later, you know, that we're like, we are on the cusp of it, you know, and we are, like you said, we are now going through this ascension process because more of us are shining that light and living from a place of love and being aware of what's going on as well. So
yeah, absolutely, Lindsay, I totally agree. And this is the thing at the moment with people and stuff, and that the most powerful message I could say is there's not a lot of time left, so you need to get working on yourself. You really, you know, I think if you are, you know, over the kind of, you hear a lot of people saying, well, if you're kind of 51% in the green, then you are not in the red, then you're kind of doing well. But unfortunately, not everyone's going to make it. Not everyone's going to make it, and that's a shame, because there's so much potential in every single body. And it's very frustrating, but then again, you have to appreciate that we all are on our own journeys, and you've just got to really be kind of unconditional about that. And you know, don't get me wrong, there's been too many times I've been caught up in conversations on the likes of social networks and stuff like that. I've been drawn into conversations and no one's getting it, and I just think, you know, some people's awareness are not ready, and unfortunately it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is, you know. That really is.
We all chose, didn't we, our different roles at this time. So you know, if we chose to be here, awesome. If we're choosing to depart, that's also awesome. But yeah, we've all made our choices about where we're going in this time, more or less, isn't it? So
Lindsay,
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, one more thing then. So if anyone's thinking of sort of like venturing into psychedelics, what would you say to them?
I would say, I mean, I would probably, as you say, do some research. I mean, there's plenty out there on the likes of YouTube and information on the internet. That's not a problem. But what I would say is, I would kind of really if you're going to do that, then might be a good idea to probably experiment a little bit first. Maybe microdose. That's something else that I would look into first, because you know, sometimes it might be a bit heavy just to go in, you know, go in there deep, fast, and it might be a bit of a shock for you. But I mean, the likes of myself and probably many others that, you know, that have probably done this, we kind of, it was a calling from your spirit to do it. So that's another thing. If you feel drawn to it, then I think you're ready. But if you don't, if you think, oh yeah, it interests me, but I'm not sure, then maybe just weigh up your options and maybe just look into it a bit further. And if the time presents itself, you know, your intuition is the feeling that you get from that stomach, from the very basic point of view. You feel drawn to these things, or drawn to certain aspects of DMT and things like that. I would suggest maybe going on a proper retreat where you're properly looked after, and that's probably money well invested. If that's something, I mean, I know whereabouts where I live, I know that they were doing retreats, probably places only like 40 miles away, and you could book for a whole weekend. You basically, they'd have a fee that you pay, and then suddenly they would look after you for a couple of days and a couple of nights where you'd be, you know, you'd have food, shelter, and they would prepare you for your trip, because that's exactly what it is. That's a trip, you know, and it will take you to, you know, dizzy new heights inside yourself. It really does. It really does untangle your consciousness. So if you've been, I really believe a lot of psychedelic stuff is it's a medicine, massively. It's a medicine, and that's the thing. And it's a very basic but powerful medicine that I think that if you like to hear people say, oh well, you know, people with depression and things like that, you can kind of work, and how it works on that is that once you start to have that psychedelic experience, you will see the darkest night of the soul. And it might seem scary at the time, but once you sort of pass through that, you sort of think, hang on a minute, my energy and who I am is bigger than all of that, and that's fine. But it's something that I would suggest you know, I wouldn't do it alone. I would always do it with someone maybe that has a good, at least more than a basic knowledge background about it. Because when I think back now, I would have rather have done it with somebody that I know, and so I'd feel safe. Because at the time, I just done it randomly on a Sunday night, thinking this is the time to do it, and I had work the next day. That was the hilarious thing. But obviously, I didn't go to work because I was no fit state to. So, but no, that's what that would be my best advice.
Oh, fabulous. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you, where's the best place they can find you?
I can send you my email, and I am on Facebook as Source Healing by LBB. But I'll give those links to you, and you
fabulous, yeah. So I'll stick them in the comments. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you for any healing work, they can do that. Is that okay? That's
excellent. That'd be great. Thanks
fabulous.
A lot, Lindsay.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing your journey with us.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, lovely.
Take care. See you later.
Bye.